So you've mentioned remote ID twice. I have to ask because we don't have it here yet.
It's going. The concept of remote ID, I absolutely 100% love.
Yeah.
I think we need to have the ability to know who's flying.
Yes.
The issues are twofold. One, the technology is not that great.
Mm-hmm.
It's in theory it's great, and in reality it's not working so hot.
Welcome to another episode of Coastal Drone Podcast. My name is Ian Wills. This is Finn Leahy. And this week we've got Vic Moss, the CEO and co-founder of the Drone Service Provider Alliance. And Vic has graciously given us his time today to talk about drones in the States. And just to, like, if you're a watcher of the show, we're Canadians. Obviously our audience is both. And so we're kind of coming to this wanting to hear about your perspective on the American drone industry and where things are going and what the heck the DSPA is. But first, let's who the heck is Vic Moss?
Okay. Who the heck is Vic Moss? That's an interesting way to put it. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. That's awesome. I'm a photographer, videographer by trade. That's what I do. I always like to tell people up front that, I'm going to talk about regulatory stuff. You're listening to a guy with an art degree. So keep that in the back of your minds. But I have ended up being fairly deeply involved in the U.S. industry here in Colorado. Drones came on the scene here for me in 2012 here in Denver. I'm based here in Denver. And to me, it was always just, hey, it's a flying camera. It's the tallest, most versatile tripod in the world, is what I like to tell people. And one thing led to another, and I got involved in the regulatory side and the advocacy side. And now I'm pretty involved in that just as well. I probably spend about as much time doing that as I do actually making a living. So, but it's a lot of fun. Enjoy it quite a bit.
Awesome. So, one of the ones I wanted to ask, and I, just to get the foundation here, like you mentioned, you're in photography, videography. Mm-hmm. You are a drone service provider first before you got into this. What was the aha moment for you for going from traditional ground-based photography to that flying tripod camera?
Sure. For me, and it's just, I still do a lot of other stuff. I mean, drones are maybe 25, 30% of what I do.
Okay.
For me, it was, I do a lot of work with architecture. It's kind of my specialty. And so I do a lot of work with general contractors. And I had one I worked with quite a bit, and I worked with the marketing department, and she said what they do is they have a guy who's got a private pilot license, a little Cessna 172, and he flies all their construction sites once a month and gives them 4 photographs taken from either a 500 or 1,000 feet, obviously, depending on where they're located in congested area or not, and charges $250. And so I reached out to her and I said, hey, there's these things now called drones. Can I play with one on one of your sites? And she said, yeah, give it a go. And so I started doing that for them. And it was literally back in the Phantom 2 with the GoPro stage.
Okay, yeah.
Way back when.
Very DIY.
Very DIY. Although I didn't DIY. I bought people who knew how to DIY.
Okay.
Because I have no idea how to do that stuff. Don't want to. Thank you very much. And one thing led to another. So now I'm flying 9 different drones and all that fun stuff. But that's what started the old Phantom 2 with the GoPro and modified GoPros. I actually modified some GoPros so I didn't have to worry about that fisheye look.
And so that would have been early teens?
2013.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So more than 10 years in the industry now of the drone side.
Just the drone side. Yeah.
And that's so. What would be you mentioned you did the real estate, you did the construction site development, the industrial photography, which is just a natural segue to getting that camera into the air.
Oh, sure.
Through that, what would have been in the early days, in the 13s, the 14s, what was one of the biggest challenges aside from the technology for you?
The regulatory environment. Okay. The FAA. I'm going to blame Congress on this. Congress, in their infinite wisdom, developed what was called a 333 exemption process.
Okay.
To fly a drone commercially in the United States. And so what they did is they said, okay, you have to certify a particular drone to be able to be flown, and then it was interpreted as you have to have a pilot's license, and one thing led to another, and it was a big hot mess until 2016. When the Part 107 came out, so remote pilot certificate came out. So between 13 and 16, it was kind of a wink and nod sort of thing, actually, with the FAA.
Yeah.
Somebody turned me in for flying without a Part 333 exemption.
Okay.
And so I like to tell people I'm an FAA certified non-compliant 333 operator. And so, well, obviously now, I got the 107 the first week it came out. So obviously I do that.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, one of the other things I do is I work with the FAA quite a bit. And so now that same guy who sent me that letter back in 2014, I work with and talk with at least once a month about different drone things.
Okay.
So a lot of fun, and like I said, it's put me in a position to be able to learn a lot of stuff and be friends with a lot of people I wouldn't otherwise be able to be friends with. So a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the Drone Service Providers Alliance here, and this is kind of leading to it, but it's interesting. So the time frame is very similar up in Canada. 2018, 2019. So 2019 was when the genesis of our, not Part 107, but we have the basic and advanced regulations up in Canada, but it's a routine pilot certificate process now. Whereas up until then, it was a special flight certificate, which would have been similar to the exemption. Basically, any commercial operations, any built-up area operations, you had to have special permission from our regulator in order to fly. Now it's routine. And now, as of April, we've just changed the laws again. So now we've got a routine beyond line of sight regs coming this fall. It's a mess, but it's exciting. So
it's our mess.
It's our mess. So
that's right.
More to come.
It's ours.
Yeah. It's so you go from being certified non-compliant operator into co-founding of this Drone Service Providers Alliance. What was the genesis? What was the
a business part? My current business partner, he and I over the years had developed a number of contacts within the industry, whether it's FAA, certain manufacturers, some politicians, some regulatory folks. And so we had these kind of built-in contacts, and we started getting, we as in the country, the United States, started getting a lot of areas where states and localities were trying to regulate parts of the airspace they're not allowed to regulate. Here in the States, the FAA is the sole authority for anything in navigable airspace. And so with drones, obviously, that's literally from the ground up.
Yes.
And so we decided that there was not really any national voice for advocates for commercial drone pilots. Okay. Recreational drone pilots had the AMA, sort of, a couple other things. There was another organization that tried to do it, but it wasn't quite ready yet. And so Kenji and I got together. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Do you want to join me?" And I said, "No." And then he called me a few more times, and he finally convinced me that this is a good idea. So we started the Drone Service Provider Alliance. We're a 501c6 registered here in Denver because I took care of all the paperwork. And we've done everything from talk to, we had a small town in Ohio that was starting to pass some of these regulations. This was probably right about 2020 when we started. I think it was March in 2020 when we started. And we got together. We had a Zoom meeting. Thank God for Zoom. That we just met with some local drone pilots who'd wanted to go speak in front of the city council. And, that's not something drone pilots or actually everyday normal people do all the time. So we just gave them some pointers and stuff like that. And then I've been in congressional offices in DC.
Yeah.
So we run the gamut, just trying to educate politicians and regulators and legislators. This is what's going to happen to the drone service provider industry. The small and most of us are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 person operations.
Right.
Vast majority of us.
Yeah.
And so this is what's going to happen to our business if you pass this law. This is going to make it harder for us. Or, hey, if you want to do this, let's work on this aspect of it instead of this other aspect of it. You'll not hurt the industry. You're not going to have the FAA.gov email from their legal department saying, "Hey, y'all can't do that," stuff like that. So that's sort of what we started out as. It's been fun.
There's such a spectrum of drone operators at the recreational level, at the commercial level. There's commercial, for example, and I'm not singling them out because I love it, but commercial FPV operations. They kind of blur the line between recreational and commercial and industrial.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right. So it's what has your process or strategy changed since you mentioned Ohio? Was that the the municipal overreach was the start of this, and working at the municipal level?
It was just the first one I could think of, really, as far as, or the first one I can remember that we actually, sat down and had a Zoom meeting with pilots.
Okay.
We've written articles, we've done videos, that kind of stuff probably before that, but that was just hey, they reached out to us and we said, okay, let's do this and let's help you. And that's I think that might have been the first actual live Zoom meeting we had.
Okay.
So that's how that started.
So what we found in the last 2 years, we've gone, so in 2020, our beyond line of sight operations here in Canada were first proposed. So it's been 5 years before they came into RID. And I think they parallel Part 108, which is coming in or is in development, maybe.
we hope.
Right.
No, it is. It's just where's it at? Where's it at? We don't know.
So our consultation process is we have a notice of proposed amendment, and then it goes out for public consultation, and then another amendment, and then it goes through multiple stages of, they call it Canada Gazette. And so we just went through Canada Gazette 2, which is effectively law as of a certain date or a signing. The consultation period. So these laws, and I think Part 108 is probably very similar. It is meant to enable the medium to industrial sized operators, because it's beyond line of sight in a routine fashion. We increased the drone weight limits from
25 to 150 kilos.
Yeah, so 331 pounds, right? So it is serious operations.
Sure.
And one of the things that our customer base as trainers is all spectrums of drone pilots. It was interesting how much of a consumer level consultation feedback. They didn't anticipate the amount of feedback they would get from recreational operators.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. And so is that something that you're providing a voice for that? Because I think one of the challenges is that if you have 100,000 people versus an entity, is there a benefit one way or the other for having this organization represent that?
Absolutely. And once Part 108 comes out, and that's assuming it's called Part 108. We're assuming it is. I've heard FAA people use that language, so I think it's a fairly safe assumption. We're very similar. We have what's called a notice of rulemaking, so it's NPRM, and then we go through the comment process, and then it gets rewritten, and then it goes through its OMB and all the other things. So it gets rewritten as a final rule and then signed off. So very similar, just different language. We don't know if it's going to be just for long-term stuff or long-range inspections, deliveries, etc. If there's going to be a weight class, because remember, under 107, you can only fly up to 55-pound drones.
Right.
So anything bigger than that is going to have to be 135, or you're flying under flight certificate or aircraft certification, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But once we get the NPRM, I'll sit down with Greg Reverdio, who is the chief pilot and co-founder of Pilot Institute. He and I work very closely together. He actually just texted me a second ago about something as we were sitting here talking. Yeah. And we'll sit down, we'll digest it with him and his staff, and try and put something out that will help people understand what is being asked of them. Our government, and I'm sure the Canadian government is probably just as guilty of this, but they put out a lot of stuff written in governmentese.
Yes.
And so trying to digest it as a non-government person, it takes a little bit of time. So DSPA, Pilot Institute, and others, LEDA, Law Enforcement Drone Association, drone responders, I work with all of them. We are going to sit down and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to say, okay, here's what you need to say and why. We're not going to tell anybody what to say, because the last thing you want to do with an NPRM is just send in a form letter and say, my name is blank, and then boom, just send it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same way up there. You want to tell a story.
Yeah.
So we'll sit down and we'll do that. And I think the DSPA and Pilot Institute are really going to be instrumental in trying to craft exactly what that language looks like.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned Greg from Pilot Institute. He put out a few weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple of months ago, there was a form, well, not a form letter, but an advocacy call for something similar. I've forgotten now which one it was, because there's been a few developments lately. So
yeah, there have been. And we did too, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was either. So we did something very similar. We sat down and it was an NPRM for it was an advanced notice of proposed rulemaking.
Right.
which is a pre-step to a notice of proposed. It's blah blah blah. It's
Fair warning has been given.
Fair warning has been given, and I think we did a really good job. I think there was 300 and something or 400 and something comments on that.
Wow.
And we had over 60,000 on remote ID. So that we floored them.
Yeah.
On that. But I would expect a number with Part 108. This is gonna be similar to the remote ID rule, where it's going to be industry changing. So we'll see a lot of comments, and hopefully Greg and I and Lita and drone responders can all really push out language that will help the industry.
Wow. So you've mentioned remote ID twice. I have to ask, because we don't have it here yet. So
hide it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to go ahead and ask your question. I'm not going to comment just yet.
The first softball question is, how's it going?
It's going.
Yes.
Next question.
Well, so the reason why we're
That's
asking,
not helpful. I'm sorry.
the reason why we're asking is because things like remote ID, these like large changes that you say can change the industry. Sometimes what we like to do here in Canada is watch what you do in the States and then say, this is working, this isn't working. And then when our laws come in, I don't want to say you're the guinea pigs, but you're the guinea pigs.
I'm fine with that later.
And I'm fairly close with quite a few Canadian representatives on the regulation side, and
nice.
They're unofficially never confirmed, but we want them to spend a couple $2 billion and see how it goes first before we go out and do
you're
it.
smart. You're smart people out there. I tell you, man.
Yeah, maybe those flamingos are a good idea.
It's going. The concept of remote ID, I absolutely 100% love.
Yeah.
I think we need to have the ability to know who's flying.
Yes.
The issues are twofold. One, the technology is not that great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all run off of smartphones, basically. I mean, there's remote ID receivers and that kind of stuff that's going on. And Apple does not allow in their SDK, I think it's called Wi-Fi sniffing or something. I can't remember exactly the technical term.
Yeah.
People out there probably laughing at me going, you don't know what you're talking about. But they don't allow their phones to sample Wi-Fi.
Yeah, to scan actively or something.
They actively scan or whatever. Yeah, whatever the language is. And so, how many people in this world use Apple as opposed to Android or something along those lines? And so none of the standard remote ID drones, which are the ones that are built in the DJIs, the Autels, the Parrots, all that guy, all those things, they all broadcast Wi-Fi. So iPhones can't see 90% of the drones in the air. So that's an issue. And then even with the Android remote ID apps, they just don't jive right. And they work when they work great, but sometimes they're not seeing drones that are actually broadcasting that kind of stuff. So it needs some work, and I think it will happen. At one point, the FAA was talking with Apple. I don't know where that went. But it's in theory, it's great, and in reality, it's not working so hot.
I've seen some dedicated device demos. There's a couple out there, a couple of videos out there about that. I guess at the technology level, I can understand that. So to preface this, Finn and I are both commercial pilots as well. So Finn flies airplanes, I fly helicopters. We've both had deconflicting moments with other traffic in the air, which is potentially either drones or airplanes or something else. And so in our world, it's see and avoid, right? Because usually the aircraft is big enough that you can see it. Yep. A drone, a Mini 4 Pro at 1,000 feet is not. And just another layer to the challenge in Canada, there is no height limit for micro drones. So anything under 0.55 pounds, it can legally be flown at high altitude, but then we do have a caveat clause called the don't be an idiot rule, which is CARS 901 or 900.06.
Ian's the only one that calls it that. It's not written in the regulations.
No, it is.
You know what? But think about it. If we had a law that said you can't be an idiot, then we wouldn't need any other laws.
Exactly. It's a common sense rule.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You can fly at high altitude, so there is a risk of micro drone pilots, but in theory, there's a whole conversation about whether or not that's safe or not. But anyway, we don't have digital conspicuity in Canada for aircraft or for drones. There's
you don't have ADSB for aircraft.
It is not mandated in general airspace or at low level controlled airspace. It is only mandated at 12,500 feet and up at
Class
this point.
A. Okay.
Yeah. For us, it's Class B, and then Class A is at 18.5 and up. So,
okay. Yeah, that's right. You guys are slightly different.
We have more letters. But so remote ID I've always wondered if the intent was, because I know there's a lot of conversations out there about the personal privacy side of remote ID and the risk of someone flying a drone and then being approached by someone that has a remote ID detector, and then that conflict that comes from that.
Yep.
Was that the intent, or was it more because drone on drone conflict doesn't seem likely? It's more drone on manned aircraft.
It's actually not what it was for.
Okay.
Remote ID, the original concept behind remote ID, they call it the electronic license plate in the sky.
Okay.
And it was really kind of designed because, some of our government agencies, some of our 3-letter agencies, the FBI, DHS, Secret Service, blah, 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 wanted the ability to see who's flying where.
Right.
And they also wanted to give local law enforcement the ability to see who's flying where.
Okay.
Originally, it was supposed to be networked, so there could be one person sitting in a office in Washington, D.C. that can see every drone in the air at all times, and that obviously was absolutely not going to work or happen.
A couple 100,000.
And so it kind of morphed into a put an app on your phone, or get something like Air Sentinel to have a base where you can watch for drones. And a drone, let's say somebody calls the cops and say, hey, there's a drone flying over my neighborhood.
Yes.
So that gives the responding officer a chance to come out and say, okay, pull up his Android phone now, and open the app, find, okay, there it is. There's the person. I'm going to go talk to him. And so that's really the intent behind it. There's certainly the concerns about pilot safety, and that's a very legitimate concern, especially with some of the incidents we've had lately. Here, it has not manifested as an issue, but that doesn't mean it won't in the future.
Right. It's interesting. I remember reading an article about ADSB the other day that I believe the FAA has stated they will not enforce based on ADSB track, and this might be totally wrong, but the mindset or the idea I got from the article was that they're not using it as an enforcement tool because it's not meant to be. Because the other side of that is it drives down or drives up non-compliance.
Yeah, exactly.
If you turn off your transponder, no one knows you're there, kind of concept. So,
well, nice thing about remote ID is it has to be tamper resistant.
Yes.
So I, as a pilot, can't turn it on or off.
Yeah.
And I forgot I was going to go with this, but yeah, it is. It definitely has to be. You can't turn it on and off, and so that's huge. And ADSB stuff, yeah, that's the enforcement part of it.
Yes,
it's never meant to be an enforcement tool. Okay. I won't say who because I have permission, but there's an FAA guy that does a number of different podcasts, and he goes to different conferences. He said, we're not sending out a bunch of FAA employees walking around with remote ID apps to find you.
Yeah.
It's not what it's for. But if it's going to be somebody doing something stupid, as Greg says, don't be that guy, because it's always a guy. It's never a gal. We all know that. We know it's true. If you're going to be that guy, then the cops need to be able to find you, and then they take down all your information and they forward it to the FAA.
Yeah,
that's all it's really supposed to be.
Okay,
it's not like, okay, let's pull up all the history of your remote ID and find out something you did wrong. No, it doesn't even save history. Remote ID apps do not save history unless you actually actively say record.
Okay, yeah, so it's just an in-time live data feed.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is you mentioned the flying over house and flying over property a little bit here, so I'm stealing that as a segue. And it's early days. We reported on this a couple of weeks ago. There's the municipal and state overreach of FAA, because this kind of
that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It happens here too. and we have parallels in Canada, but I'm going to say it, Florida. What is going on down there? What is this?
That's a good question. Actually, I've already talked about this once today in one of my groups.
Okay.
They had if I would know what I'm talking about, I could pull up the numbers. I think it's Senate Bill 1422
Sounds right. Yeah. Yeah, that's
was part of that was you may use reasonable force to remove a drone from the sky under 500 feet if you think it's surveilling. That did not make it. It was actually then Senate Bill 1121 or House Bill 1121. Again, these don't quote me on the numbers here. And the only reason I remember this sort of is because literally I was talking about this an hour ago with somebody. That was substituted for the House bill or for the Senate bill, and so that language was not added. That did pass, and it's on its way to either it's already been signed or it's on its way to the governor's desk to sign. What they did instead was that they removed that part, so you cannot take a drone out of the air. Period. End of discussion. If you do it, you should go to jail.
Okay, good.
That's just Vic talking at this point. But it does increase some of the penalties for flying over critical infrastructure, and that's where the bill needs it kind of falls apart with federal preemption. So there's some issues that we as 107 pilots, as remote pilots, have an exemption that we are allowed to fly there if we're flying commercially and we're flying under FAA regulations. So we are allowed to do it, but it kind of throws hobbyists under the bus. Part of the language is, hey, if you're flying close enough to cause concern for critical infrastructure, then you're in trouble. And so it's like, what if my backyard backs up against an electrical substation?
Yeah.
And I fly, and somebody there says, "Oh, drone, let's call the cops." Now you're interfered with the operation. So there is intentionality language in the bill as well. So there's always that out for people.
Okay.
But it's what happens when the federal government doesn't do their job. And I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute. Feel free to edit this out. We had in 2016 FAA Reauthorization and Extension Act. We had Section 2209, which gave the federal government, so the FAA and security agencies, 180 days to come up with what's called critical infrastructure list. And on that list would then say, okay, you can't fly over this,
Right.
a refinery, a prison, blah, 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 blah. But it had to have an official list.
Right.
We're recording this on May 7th, 2025. Guess what doesn't exist yet?
I was going to ask.
And so what happens is when the federal government doesn't do their job, and I'm not blaming the FAA on this. I happen to know for a fact that it's not the FAA on this, and that's all I can say at the moment.
Right.
It's the states will step in and fill the void when it comes to regulation because that's just what they do. Mm-hmm. And so you get states like Florida and states like Texas and states like, I believe Tennessee has one. And there's a few other states that define critical infrastructure in the airspace over. Arizona is another one. They can't do that. Yeah. They can't say you can't fly over this. And so the agencies that are slowing up 2209 need to get with the program. I think I'll say it that way.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, but if they would do that, then we wouldn't have to worry about Florida, wouldn't have to worry about Arizona, wouldn't have to worry about Texas, wouldn't have to worry about all these little states. I think Ohio just passed one that said you can't fly over a farm. And so, I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous what some of the states are doing.
Yeah.
So, okay, off my soapbox. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I appreciate it because we have the same concerning parallels in Canada. So it's happened more at the municipal level. I've personally experienced it. I've had municipalities where I've reached out, done outreach as starting up a business and saying, look, I'm going to be doing this or that. Do you have any process for this? And a great example in Canada in general is parks. We still have language that doesn't. Same thing. We have the Ministry of Transport determines the airspace. So anything from surface and up is federal regulatory control. And then we have defined the equivalent of a TFR. We call it a Class F restricted here in Canada, but surrounding prisons and military locations. But they're permanently defined on the map, and or there are laws in place that if it's an emergency scenario like a fire, it automatically kicks off a TFR.
Similar down here. Yep.
Exactly. And so, but we've had municipalities say, no, you can't fly a drone anywhere in the municipal property of the city. Because or like the problem is the language starts on the ground, which is in their purview. Sure.
Yep. Absolutely. Same thing here.
But then that ground turns into sky, and it's up to 200 feet, up to 300 feet, up to 400 feet. This is the same as this low level stuff that happened in the last couple of weeks down south as well. This was it below 300 feet? Sorry, I'm quoting it terribly, but
That's okay.
It's the same idea as what you're saying about Florida. There's the absence of concrete general knowledge of this then leads to regulators stepping in saying, well, I don't think it's good enough. I want to control this better, or I have a better idea, and then superseding what the federal state is.
Yep.
So this bill that's going to the governor, that it sounds a little bit, we've reduced the reasonable force side of it, but there's still a definition of something that supersedes when you say this, the intent of surveillance, for example.
Right. And actually, it didn't reduce remove the threat. They removed the threat. So that's gone. Okay. It's not in it at all. So that if you're watching this in Florida and you think you can go out and shoot a drone down now, you cannot.
Yeah.
It's anytime a municipality inserts the word over or flying near.
Yes.
It is federally preempted here in the United States. And so that's what we need to watch out for. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
It does.
Okay,
we're dancing around a little bit about it, and I think we have asked and answered. So it's really well said. Okay. I'm picking through. I've got some great questions here, and I don't want to drag this on because there's so many that I could ask you. But
no, go for it. You can have me back too if you want.
I'd love to. So I have one more easy one, I'm sure.
Okay.
Trade pressures. So
trade pressures. I gotta go now. No, I don't want to get in trouble with certain people, but I will be nice. I will be nice.
And this is certainly, I understand the headiness of this because we don't know. No one knows anything. Canadians, obviously, we're kind of feeling our own pressure about what it comes to. One of the things though is I think that there's a shortage, from my perspective as a Canadian, there's a shortage of options out there for small, medium drone providers that are facing 100% tariffs on Chinese manufactured drones. And from your perspective in country, is that true? And what is happening to see this go?
Okay. I won't comment on the legitimacy of tariffs because there's lots of people with lots of letters after their names that know a lot more about that than me.
Certainly, that's fair.
But let's say the concept of a tariff is to increase your country, in our case, Americans, the ability for America to produce a product without undue, you can use that at however you want, cost savings by foreign manufacturers. That concept, again, it's sort of like remote ID. In concept, I think that sounds great. In reality, it does not work at all with drones. And I'm strictly speaking of drones here. I'm not going anywhere else.
Right.
Look at what we, American U.S. drone service providers, and recreational, by the way, we're talking recreational as well. What do we fly? We fly Chinese drones.
Yes.
We fly DJI, 90+%. We fly Autel, 5+%. Potensic, all the hobby drones. There's not a hobby drone that I know of. If somebody knows something otherwise, please reach out to me. That is not made in China. And so the tariffs aren't going to help us at all. They're actually really, 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 really going to hurt us because there is no ability, period, for anybody in the U.S. to make what we fly. We can't make a Mini. We can't make an Air. We can't make a Mavic. We can't make an Evo. We can't make an Inspire.
Right.
We can't make those drones, period, no matter what. We don't have the ability. We don't have the manufacturing. We don't have the design. And so in our case with drones at 175%, I think is what it is now.
Wow.
It's all it's doing is killing local retailers, people who want to be able to update. Like I'm not updating any of my drones right now. Yeah. With the Matrice 4, the Mavic 4 Pro, I fly Mavic 3s for the most part, Mavic 3 Enterprise as my drones of choice, simply because of their flexibility and their ability, and they're just all kinds of reasons. But that's why I fly them.
Yeah.
If I were to need to update those right now, I'm looking at $30,000.
Yes.
And what's my other choice? There isn't one. I mean, literally, there isn't one. And I am not alone. 90+% of what we fly cannot be produced in the United States. And look at law enforcement as well. 90% of what they fly cannot be produced in the United States. And you've got a couple different brands, a enterprise brand and a tactical brand, shall we say, that are pushing their brands, but the tactical drone is a $20,000 drone. A DJI is going to be $1,200.
Yes.
The enterprise drone is a $20,000 drone. In DJI, you can get a comparable drone for $8,000. So, at the very extreme, if something doesn't change quickly, we're going to have retailers go out of business, and we're going to have, if it doesn't change soon enough, and then we have a little bit of time here, we're going to have drone service providers go out of business because none of our drones have the ability to be serviced. So I can't change the oil on my Mavic, right? The only thing I can pretty much do is change props.
Yes.
If I've got a motor going bad, well, then I got to change the motor and I got to send it in, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I know other people that can do it, but I'm not.
Yeah.
At some point, our drones are no longer safe to be in the air because they're not designed to fly again. They are limited in the number of hours they can fly. 1,000, 2,000. I don't know what that number is. I usually don't reach it anyway because I'm always updating. But at some point, we're going to be in trouble as an industry because we will not be able to replace our drones, and we will have to go out of business or fly unsafe vehicles. It's that simple.
Yeah. So back to the DSPA then. What's the call to action for this other than?
Oh, golly. A couple of things. First of all, one thing, I'm doing a lot of work. DSPA is one of the founding members of DAA, which is the Drone Advocacy Alliance. That's Washington, D.C. based only.
Okay.
And we've been working on a lot of different call to actions for that. One of them is we have in our latest National Defense Authorization Act, there's a requirement that an agency, a federal security agency, it is not determined which one, do an audit on Chinese drones, and they're dragging their feet on that. And if they don't have the audit performed and signed off on by December 23rd of this year, DJI, Autel, Specta, and Anzu all get put on the FCC list where they can no longer get FCC licenses. So it's a dead man's break. I don't know if you have that expression up there or not, but Greg, I'm going to give Greg Reverdio credit for that because he said it first time I heard it was him. I was like, dude, I'm stealing that.
He likes trains, obviously.
But we've got that. We've got to do that. So it's like, okay, that's one of the call to actions. DSPA, I recently wrote an open letter to our president as CEO of DSPA and said, would you please look at removing drones from the tariffs, because they remove some other electronics because they can't be made here. And so those industries who have much more lobbying power in DC than we do, had the ability to do that. And so I wrote an open letter to him. I tweeted it out. I asked other people to tweet it out, and I don't think that went anywhere. I was under no illusion that it would, but a man could dream. And that's kind of what the call to action is right now, is we've got to get this settled, and we've got to get the ability for DJI to be imported and Autel and the rest imported into the United States. That's the call to action.
Yeah. So it's our audience. I think we see quite a few American as our audience. Actually, it's a pretty big percentage. So definitely that open letter will be linked in the description here. So please, everyone that's watching this, check it out afterwards. And is it congressman? Who's the voice? If you're speaking to your local representative, who's the next person?
It depends. Here in the States, it's going to be one of your two senators or one of your Congress people.
Okay.
And every state has two senators, and the Congress is divvied up by what your population is. That's the People's House, and then we have the State House.
Okay.
So that's who you reach out to. If you go to DAA, actually, droneadvocacyalliance.com, and you go to our Take Action page, we have it set up so you literally, if you click on one of our Take Actions, let me pull it up here real quick while I'm talking about it. And you fill in your address, it literally fills in, it tells you who it is, and it sends it automatically to your congressperson. So we'll be both your senators and your representatives. That's what we do at the federal level. We've got a couple of state, Michigan and Texas. We have a couple of state campaigns going as well.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely make sure we have links to this, all of this in the description as well. We've talked about a lot, and I think we're coming to the end here. I know Finn always wants to ask his burning question.
Go for it.
Oh, my You want me to ask that question?
That question.
That
okay,
question?
I like where this is going. This will be fun.
So the question that we like to end our interviews, normally we're talking to drone service providers. So the question we always like to end our interviews with is, forget there are any drone regulations in the world. There are no more drone regulations, and you get to fly and you get to capture one thing in the whole world without having to worry about the regulations.
Well, I did. What did the regulations say come in? That it's more just like, what's your dream job?
Yeah,
dream
what's
shot?
what's your dream? What's your dream
Wow.
shot?
You want to set them up.
Okay. Well, you know what though? I'm really blessed in that I've been able to fly in some places that most Americans have not been able to fly. I've flown for the National Park Service.
Wow.
Flown in Washington, D.C. I've flown literally on our airport and in our airport here in Denver. Worked with the Denver airport to get their drone team up and running. So now I don't fly for them anymore because they all have their own drones.
Yeah.
So I worked myself out of a job there. But I've been able to fly some places that other people have not been able to fly. So I'm really blessed in that aspect. But what I'm working on now, it's funny you should ask this, is Hoover Dam.
Wow.
I want to fly the Hoover Dam. And we tried to do it last year at Commercial UAV. We have a big Commercial UAV Expo in Las Vegas every September. And last year we were there. I tried to get permission to do that. Now you can fly your drone at Hoover, but if you fly it commercially, I think it's a $20,000 permit. So obviously I'm not going to do that for fun, even if I had the money to do that. But we did in our previous discussions. He said, well, we can probably work with that. And I just told him, I said, I like to fly places people can't fly.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to start that conversation here probably at the end of this month or next month and see if I can fly at Hoover Dam. That's where I want to fly. I want to fly Hoover Dam. It is just an amazing structure, amazing piece of technology. And people don't get to fly there very often. So that's what I want to do next.
That's awesome.
I'm weird. What can I say?
That's well, and like you said, it goes back to your architecture background as well.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Big things, big solid things are definitely the way to go for that.
They're huge. Love it.
Well, and so that's in September at Commercial UAV Expo.
Yep.
as well.
3rd through 6th, I believe. Commercialuav.com, I think is their website, but I should have pulled it up, but so I'll be there, probably on a panel or two.
Oh, we'll definitely try
it. Road trip.
Road trip. I road trip too from Denver. I always do that and spend a couple days flying in Utah. Utah's just a incredible place to fly.
Yeah, we got to get down there, and well, I got to re-up my Part 107, and then that way we don't have any concerns about it. So.
And if you get your 107, you can actually fly the Strip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, I've flown the Strip too, so that's one of those things. I flew the Bellagio Fountain last year. That was fun.
Yeah,
got to meet some really nice police officers in Las Vegas.
I think I saw that clip. I think I did.
You might have. And then Para Zero, the parachute company, we flew for them, so they've been using it as well in some of their ads.
Oh wow. Well, Vic, I really appreciate the time you've given us today.
Absolutely.
This has been great to get this perspective and hear what's going on with yourself and the DSPA. As we mentioned, we're gonna have all the links down below in the description.
Perfect.
For the Drone Service Providers Alliance and the DAA as well.
Okay.
And definitely, if you have any questions or anything in the comments, please let us know. If we can, we'll try. Maybe we'll get you back on, or maybe we'll come.
Sure, yeah. You can even email me directly. Throw my email on there. I get emails all day long,
okay.
So not a problem.
Perfect.
I try to answer as many as I can. Sometimes I just say, for us, let me ask a regulatory question. I say and everybody should have this email address here in the States, uashelp@faa.gov. Mike and Landon, or Steve and Landon, the guys that run it, and I think there's a couple more, are great people, and they're always willing to help. So uashelp@faa.gov, the
Awesome.
UAS Help Center at the FAA. Great people work there.
That's a lot shorter than our RPAS Info Center centered to RPAS info at tc.gov.bc.fed.ca.
Holy moly.
Something like that.
We have a couple of those. We've got a preemption email address from the FAA that is, it's about yay long.
Yeah. So all of our government emails are bilingual. Both
okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Vic, thanks again. Appreciate you coming on. And like I said, is there any other socials if you want people to find you on, or?
You can Google me. I'm pretty easy to find. If you can't find me on the internet, you don't know how to use the internet. So ask your 4-year-old to help you, and they can find it. But I'm on Instagram, and I'm on What am I on? I'm on pretty much everything.
Okay.
Just find me. I'm not on TikTok.
Okay.
So don't look there.
No dancing videos. Okay.
Oh, good gosh, no. There's not enough alcohol in this country.
I can't comment. If you like this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate growing the channel. This is the kind of stuff we really want to see. And if you want to see more of this, obviously hit those buttons. But we'll see you next week. Thanks again for watching.
Bye.
Cheers.